Well, the Women's Air Race Classic has been a tradition since 1921, which has evolved into the Women's Air Race Classic that's run from June 18th to June 24th, 2024. And it is amazing, this tradition. And we're going to talk about this today on the Stuck Mic AvCast. And welcome to the show. My name is Carl Valeri. I'll be your host today. And I'm joined by Leslie Caldwell and also Emmy Dillon. Before we get started with that, we're going to talk a little bit about our sponsor. I know a lot of folks listen to this in the beginning to get those free scholarships guides. And this podcast today is sponsored by our friends over there at Strumer Law. StrumerLaw.com. That's Robert M. Strumer, LLC. They're giving away 100 of those scholarships guides. Only a few are left, so quick, get out there and get them. You can go to stuckmicavcast.com/free and use a coupon code Strumer Law. You know, the law offices of Robert M. Strumer, LLC handles various aviation matters, including FAA investigations and pilot medical certification. You can find them on the web at strumerlaw.com. And also, if you want to find out more about that Pay It Forward program where Strumer Law has gotten involved with, you can go over to our sister podcast, aviationcareerspodcast.com/Pay It Forward, and check it out there. Again, get the free scholarships guide at stuckmicavcast.com/free, and there's scholarships for everybody, no matter what level. People that are getting into aviation, just starting at, people want to add a rating, general aviation pilots, and people that want to do it for a career. Well, once again, today's episode is actually something that I'm so excited about, and that's the Air Race Classic. And women's air racing has been around for a really long time, like I said, since 1929. And somebody that actually I think is just incredibly enthusiastic about this, and ever since I've met her, and we wound up realizing before the show we've met before, is Emmy Dillon. Emmy, welcome to the show. It's great having you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of us today and to share all about the Air Race Classic and how excited we are for another year of air racing.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you corrected me. 1929 is when this tradition started with women's air racing. It's actually evolved, and it's actually changed names quite a bit. But so this whole air race thing, this Air Race Classic, tell us a little bit about it, that maybe some history, and also who's involved with Air Race Classic.
Absolutely. So the usual elevator speech that I give is back in the 1920s, even as early as 1920 itself, air racing was like football today. I mean, tens of thousands of people would travel to these different airports to watch pilots come in and complete either their local races or even transcontinental air races. A lot of people might be familiar with the name of like the Bendix Trophy, for example. That's another type of air race people are familiar with. Well, initially, women weren't allowed to participate. They didn't have their own class. So in 1929, the Women's Air Derby was introduced, and that was the first opportunity where women were really allowed to fly in an air race. So 20 women took off from Santa Monica, California in August of 1929 and flew all the way to Cleveland, Ohio across 8 days. All of them flew solo, and they all flew a variety of different airplanes, travel airs and Beechcraft, and a variety based on the sponsorships that they were able to get. Amelia Earhart is a very common name associated with it. And we are continuing that legacy all the way until 2024. We're, 90 plus years of women's air racing. And it's truly a pleasure and an honor to be able to continue this.
Awesome. It's amazing that it goes back so far, and to be able to continue that legacy, you must be really proud. But what, Emmy, we were talking before, your background, we'll talk a little bit about your journey, but what really inspired you to get involved with this Air Race Classic?
Well, I'll be honest. So I first heard about the air race when I was in high school, but I didn't feel like I was old enough and I didn't have the connections. But when I went to college, I saw signs for it in the aviation department hallway. And I'm a competitive person. So I was like, I got to give this a shot. Like, an air race? Are you kidding me? So I just signed up just because I was competitive and I wanted to fly airplanes and do something cool and different. But the more that I learned about it, the more passionate I got about the history behind it and how it's really important to participate, not just, for the fun of the flying, because of course that's my number one kind of favorite thing, but also to continue what has been, created before us and to pave the path for those future aviators, coming behind me as well.
Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, if you're watching or listening right now, you can find out more about the Air Race Classic. It's www.airraceclassic.org, and you can follow everybody's journey there. So if you're wanting to go off and take a look at that website right now as you're listening, definitely go check that out because you can actually help that organization, can't you, Emmy?
Oh my gosh, we're an all volunteer 501c3 organization. So all of us, the board of directors, everybody that volunteers at the stops. There's so much that happens behind the scenes, in addition to what we need during the actual air race itself. Um, there's a lot of people that put in a lot of effort to make this happen every year, and we need like-minded, passionate people, historians, pilots. I mean, you name it, we need it. And so if you're really, really interested in volunteering, definitely check out our website, airraceclassic.org. You don't have to be a woman to volunteer. Anyone can volunteer. We need help from everyone. And I think that's really important to say that we highlight and emphasize the importance of the history of women's air racing. But in order for us to continue this, we need everyone's help. So no matter who you are, whatever your interest level is, we definitely need your volunteer help.
Emmy, give us some examples of what some of those volunteer opportunities would be. Are there things that we can do to help during the year, or are they just at the stops themselves, which I know we're going to talk about in a minute? Give us some examples of what we could do.
Great question. So there's kind of two different types of volunteering, if you will. So you've got, like you discussed and described, there's the volunteering you can do at the stops. So a little quick overview. The air race takes you across the country, 2,500 miles or more, maybe a little bit less depending on the year. But there are about 9 stops every year at 9 different airports. And we need people there on the ground to be able to help. We need people to help fuel, to help just logistically coordinate everything. So there's positions there that you can help volunteer with by reaching out to our volunteer coordinator, usually probably around the November to December time frame of the previous year. But we do this year round. Those of us that help make this possible, help make this happen. It's kind of a constant drive, a constant improvement, and a constant focus. So we also have what I would consider like a virtual side of volunteering, which is a lot of what I do. So I do a lot on my computer. So I help the education team, to be specific for me. And so I do a lot throughout the year of developing youth programs, racer programs, briefings, anything that we can do to educate our racers and educate the public. But there's countless of other things. We need graphic designers, program designers, computer programmers, website developers. That's just to name a few of some of those. We also need people to help reach out to different organizations to gather sponsorships as well. Whatever you may be interested in, or maybe like have a niche for, I guarantee you we have a position or some role that you can help play to help grow our organization, our 501c3, and the legacy as well.
So, Emmy, going back to your journey, I think it's great that you're doing this, and this is something that I think is really important, not only for education, but to keeping the history alive. But how about your history as far as aviation is concerned? Why did you get into flying, and how did it progress to get to this point?
So I like to tell the story. I'm pretty sure the biggest reason why I got into aviation is because I watched Top Gun when I was a kid. I wanted to be an F-14 driver for like the longest time. So that was a little bit of a motivating factor. My parents really helped foster my interest. So I joined the Civil Air Patrol, and that jump started not only my flying but also my engineering. So I ended up going to an aviation university, and I learned to fly in high school. I got my private when I was in high school, and I thought that's all I was going to do, is I was just going to be a fun flyer and do that on the side and be an engineer full time. And then I got to college, and I was like, okay, so just kidding, I'd like to do a little bit more flying. So I got my advanced readings when I was in college as well, and I got an engineering degree. Graduated from college, and I became an engineer. I worked for an avionics manufacturer for a couple of years, and it was awesome. I did a lot of next generation design. I mean, stuff that I probably would have waited, 20 years to do at other companies. I filed a patent at 21. Who could say that they've done that, right? So I had a lot of great opportunities. but I wasn't flying as much as I wanted to. I was instructing, and that was okay, but I really needed to fly. So I became an air ambulance pilot in San Diego, California. I also, from there, grew to be a chartered captain and an assistant chief pilot for a Part 135 operator. And now I fly international cargo on the Boeing 777. So that's my career progression. There's lots of, obviously different ways to do it. I do, outside the Aries Classic, I do volunteer with other organizations like the Commemorative Air Force and the 99s, and the Patriots jet team as well. So aviation consumes my life, both in my career and for fun.
Speaking back to the beginning of your career, for those people that actually are watching this on YouTube right now, I did make a tribute to the college that you're with. If you notice, I hope I got the colors right. Is gold and blue? Is that correct?
Gold and blue, yeah.
Awesome. And that's our friends over there at Embry-Riddle, and like I said, I was just knowing from the time I met you many years ago till now, that energy really has moved forward and put you into this position where you're actually inspiring others through the Aries Classic. So hats off to that. And I think it's one of the things that's really neat is that you keep with the educational part of things, and hopefully you do go back to your alma mater and help inspire others.
That would be so awesome. Embry-Riddle raced for years. They're coming back this year and racing again. It's a very important part to me as well, not only to have studied there, but also to connect air racing and Embry-Riddle. And the only reason that I'm here today representing the Air Race Classic in the level that I am is because the opportunity they gave me while I was there.
That's awesome, Emmy. Let's get back to the race itself. And you mentioned that the race usually is around 2,500 miles every year. That's a lot of flying, which means that's a lot of fuel and fuel costs, and I'm sure overnight stays. So how does, let's say if I wanted to put a team together, which is actually a bucket list dream of mine. My grandmother flew in several air races. She flew back when the Air Race Classic, it was called the Powder Puff Derby. In fact, I'm wearing one of her derby pins right now in her memory.
Cool.
Anyway, so I can't wait to do that. Now that I'm out of Hawaii and in Florida, I'm hoping in the next few years I'm able to do that. Anyway, I know it costs a lot of money. So how do pilot teams generate? I know we have the collegiate team, so that's probably covered by those schools, but if just like my friend and I want to get together and pilot a team in the Airways Classic, how can we, is it just out of our own pockets, or are there sponsorships available for that?
That's a great question. And I think that a lot of people are immediately deterred from the idea of it because they're like, oh my God, it's so cool, but oh my God, that sounds so expensive. And the reality of it is, yes, it is expensive, but it's absolutely doable. So I'll break it down a little bit. So an average cost you're looking at, I would say right now is about $6,000 is a good average. Now, for me personally, for a long time, I did not make that kind of money. I'm a year one FO right now. So that's kind of a lot of money. However, out of pocket, I've spent as little as nothing. I've spent $600. I've spent $1,200. And it's all through sponsorships. So I guess to answer your question, yes, you can pay for it out of pocket yourself if you have that funding available to you. Absolutely. But if you don't, that's also okay too, because sponsorships are a huge way for people to be able to get an airplane, to get money, to have their fuel paid for. Last year, my team, we got a fuel sponsor, and we were able to just put it on, their company card, for lack of a better phrase. And we didn't have to think about how much we were spending with fuel because somebody was willing to be able to sponsor that for us. Other ways to also do it. I find that a lot of friends and family also want to be able to donate somehow. And that could be a little bit awkward. Like, I guess I'll put a check in the mail for you. Like, it's a little bit of a weird conversation. So I've also done some years where I put up a GoFundMe and allowed my friends and family to donate there. And I've had entire races paid for that way. It's just by putting something together for my friends and family to reach out and to help me. The community support just through that alone is, can be life-changing, just in the sense that it really allows you to do it. So I definitely want people to take away from this little tidbit that it can definitely sound like it's very expensive, because it is. We're flying airplanes, fuel's expensive now, operating costs are expensive, but it's absolutely doable. I'm living proof of it. Year one FO, or, even a flight instructor money, very much doable. People want to help you. People want to see this race continue. And people want their names on these airplanes racing across the country too. So lots of opportunities there for you to be able to find funding one way or another.
Oh, well, that's really encouraging. So those of you that, you like me, if you have this dream, then, just get out there and work hard, get those sponsorships, and maybe you can make that dream come true. Let's get down into some of the nitty gritty of the air race itself. So how does this work? Explain to our listeners, is it just like the fastest airplane wins the race, or is there a handicap process? What does that look like?
Great question again. Yeah. So this is a handicap based race, which means that you could be the last plane to land at the very last stop and still be the one to win. So the way that it works is before you start the race, so we're in the middle of May right now. So this is peak handicap flight season, and you're going to fly a handicap flight. So you're going to fly a square in the sky at the same density altitude. I believe it's 6,000 feet density altitude. So you do a little bit of calculations ahead of time. So you and a handicap air race pilot that's assigned to you will go up and fly this square pattern. In the airplane with you, you're carrying a Bad Elf GPS tracker. And what they're able to take away from that GPS track is they're going to create your best average ground speed for that. And that speed in your race configuration becomes your handicap speed. Your handicap speed assigned to you is the speed that you're trying to beat while you're actually air racing. So the way to win is to beat your handicap speed the best. But Emmy, hello, headwinds, like especially if you're going eastbound in like the summertime, hello, how can you do that? Well, I also living proof of this, that you can have a negative handicap speed at the end of the race because you're all dealing with the same headwinds, right? So that's why I say it the way that I said it, whoever beats their speed the best. That doesn't mean that you have to have a certain value or whatever it is, but whoever beats it the best in the given conditions is announced the winner. So hopefully that kind of explains it a little bit. It sounds semi-complicated, but it's a handicap-based system. You fly your race to beat your handicap speed the best.
Okay, that's awesome. So I could get my 172 and go and not have to worry about, the Cirrus that's racing next to me or anything like that. So speaking of that, what types of aircraft are eligible to race?
So great comments about the Cirrus. Yeah, so we've got airplanes from Aviat Huskies or Luscombe's all the way up to, twin Bonanzas. There are some limitations as to the horsepower, and I believe it's 600 horsepower is the maximum horsepower you can have. And it can't be supercharged or turbocharged, but no experimentals and no jets. But anything else in between. So last year, our 10th place, our 10th place winner, if you will, was a Luscombe. I was in a 182. So that's also proof that this handicap-based system allows really any airplane to race. And again, that's also what makes it so fun is you have no idea who's going to come race with you, the next year. And I'm number 19 this year, and I could have a Bonanza to my left, I could have a 172 to my right, a Husky or a 140. So whatever fits within those airplane, I won't call them limitations, requirements, then you're absolutely welcome to give it a shot.
Interesting. Going back to the Bad Elf, and we can, is that how we follow you guys online? How does that happen?
So that's actually through a different system. So each of the racers will carry something that's called a spot. And that's a separate device, but we'll put that in the airplane, and you're able to go to our the Air Race Classic website, airraceclassic.org, and on the main page, you'll see a link for what's called Map Progress. And you're going to see a live map of where we are. You'll start to be able to track us as we're approaching the start. So you won't see anything until about June 14th, June 15th, June 13th, 14th, because that's when we're all trying to get to Carbondale for the start this year. And then on that same link, once we launch on June 18th, you'll be able to follow us along our route. You can leave us messages and say, hey, a little bit of good luck, or like whatever it is that you may want to, interact with us. So that's another great way to interact with us racers while we're on the race. I know last year we were really encouraged by the comments we got from people that followed along. It is a tough race. It can be exhausting because they're long days. So any little bit of, encouragement from friends, family, general public, whoever that's following us is really appreciated.
And online there, you said a Carbondale. I'm trying to find this online and all while we're
Yeah.
speaking, but the Carbondale is the first, and then I noticed you're going to Newark, Ohio, though.
Newark,
So,
Ohio.
so
Yep.
I was thinking Newark, New Jersey. I was like, oh, I could go see you there. That's where I'm from. But no, it's not going to go quite that far. But you can find that map too on the same website. Everything's on. They have, by the way, it's a really good website. It has all sorts of cool stuff in there, and that whole map progress that you're talking about, I just found it. It's really easy. You click on it, and going back to that donation, you can actually donate to the organization, but you also can donate to the individuals, right? Just so that
Yes, you can. And those are two different donations. So the teams themselves may be fundraising, but the Aries Classic organization is always open to sponsorships and donations to the 501c3 as well. So if you're, if you don't know me or you don't know a team, but you want to help the organization, the Aries Classic website also has a donation link to donate directly to our funds.
And just so that people understand, what do those funds go to? Like, what do they need that for?
So we are constantly working, like I talked before, this is a year-round thing for a lot of us that help volunteer on the back end. And these funds go towards, for me, we have an education fund. So that can help me create new youth programs and outreach programs. It can also help create new programs for our racers to help better prepare our racers for whatever's to come in upcoming years as the routes change every year. We also are always looking for new technologies to also help incorporate more airplanes or to incorporate better GPS trackers. So anything that can help continually innovate the Air Race to bring it, even further and further into the 21st century while honoring the legacy that we have from 1929 is really what we're after with these donations. It also, just general funds just to be able to host. Just to be able to go to different locations and to promote the organization as well. So it's a well-rounded use and application of the funds.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if you don't have funds, there's another way you can help out, and that's by directly volunteering. Like if I have family in Newark, which is Newark, Ohio, actually, I'll definitely go there and make sure I don't go to Newark, New Jersey. I can show up and help out, right? And not only that, it's a large tent. Women can race in this, but also men. Again, going back to that, we can volunteer.
Absolutely, and like I said earlier, we can't do this without our volunteers, right? We need people on the front lines at every stop helping the racers. We've got 49 airplanes this year coming through the race. So that's going to take more than a couple of people at every stop to make it happen. So if you live nearby or if you have an easy way to access these airports and you want to be able to help out, we absolutely always need volunteers there at the airports. And regardless of background or who you are, what your interest is, we always need everyone.
And to do that, you would just go to airraceclassic.org and reach out, right?
Yep, that's an easy way. There's a link on the website that will give you all of the list of the different divisions, we call them, that people are eligible to volunteer for. For volunteering specifically, if you don't even know where you want to get started, there's a simple email. It's volunteers@airraceclassic.org, and that goes to our volunteer coordinator, and she'll work with you to find the best spot for you that will work for your interest level, your commitment level, and any skills that you may have as well.
Yeah, it looks like fun.
Emmy, let's talk about this year's race stops. So they do change every year. And if I wanted to volunteer and I wanted to know, is the air race going to come through or, nearby my hometown or in my region where I can go volunteer or just go and show up with my kids and watch the excitement of the air race. You mentioned Carbondale and Carl mentioned Newark, Ohio. What are the other stops? And then how are the racers timed at those stops?
Awesome. So, yep, like you said, the race route changes every year. And so we're not always going to the same airports, which again makes that kind of so fun and unique about every year. You're like, okay, well, I did last year, but 2024 is going to be even different from last year. So all the more reason to participate multiple years. So we'll launch from Carbondale, Illinois. We'll go to LaPorte, Indiana. We'll go to Cadillac, Michigan. I'm gonna Newark, Ohio. I think is the next one. I'm pulling up my for flight because I was planning earlier. So I've got my route up here. We'll go to Owatonna, Minnesota as well. And here we go. As I pull this up, we'll go to Moni, Illinois. We'll go to Moberly, Missouri, Bartlesville, Oklahoma, Dodge City, Kansas, and we'll end up in Loveland, Colorado at the Fort Collins Airport there north of Denver. We'll be doing our final flyby, though, at the Gill VOR, which is just northeast there of Fort Collins. So what does that even mean? So how do we get timed, and why do we carry around these GPS trackers? So you, as a racer, are timed on a timing line. So every airport, you have a given point on that airport where your leg time starts and stops. So, for example, if I'm flying from LaPorte to Cadillac, I have to cross a timing line at LaPorte, which will start my time. I'll fly my way up to Cadillac, and I'll cross my arrival timing line at Cadillac to close, if you will, the time on that leg from LaPorte to Cadillac. So we have FAA reviewed and approved flybys, and these flybys, it's just a procedure that we follow to fly between 200 to 400 feet. It also might be higher depending on what the FAA requires of us. And we fly across this timing line, wings level, in race configuration. It's kind of exhilarating to be able to do. In our GPS trackers, those bad elves that we carry, the judges will take the data and they'll be able to see exactly when we cross the timing line at both locations, at the departure and at the arrival flyby, and they'll be able to quantify whatever that time is. But technology fails. So we also have people on the ground at every airport, which is where we need volunteers. And people will actually be there on the ground looking at the airplanes, and you'll be timing them with a stopwatch at this exact time is when they cross the line, and in this order. So it's both GPS tracked, but it's also people tracked as well.
Sounds like in flight training, you got to have that paper chart backup just in case your iPad fails, right? Good check ride question.
No, that's it. No, seriously though, because I mean, it's the middle of June. It's hot everywhere we go. And I mean, we carry in our airplane, we've got at least 2 phones, at least 2 iPads. I'll carry 2 of my own. So we'll have 3 iPads plus paper charts. I mean, you have to back it up. This is that walking check ride scenario of, well, what are you going to do if that fails? We're like, well, we do actually have to prepare for that because we are traveling so far.
You know, that sounds like a lot of fun and a real cool challenge. But actually getting into this, and I've watched somebody go through this process of becoming an air racer. I didn't see all the details of it, but to me, it looked like it was a bit of a challenge. So if you were somebody, or someone's listening or watching right now is thinking about becoming a racer, how would you suggest they do that?
You're right. It can be a little bit of a challenge, not necessarily to be qualified to participate, but there are a lot of steps. You know, this process starts in January and we race in June. So there is a multi-month process with different phases we go through. You have to register yourself, you have to register the airplane, and then you have to go through your handicap flight, and then you actually have to go to the start and then race. So it can be a little bit intimidating with how much you have to do to prepare, and you're like, it does take a lot of effort. However, in the Air Race Classic, there's a program called the Mama Bird program. So if it's your first time racing and you're like, I have no clue what I'm doing, I just know I want to do this, sign up for the Mama Bird program because you're going to get assigned a race team like myself and my race partner. I've done this 5 times. My race partner has been racing for 50 years. And we can help you through this whole process. We can have weekly calls. We can talk as often as you'd like to help you through this whole process so that you're not doing it alone. Nothing about this air race is done alone. This is a group event. This is a mentorship opportunity, and an opportunity to be mentored. I get mentored, still, even though this is my 5th race, there's always something to learn from this. So that Mama Bird program is so worth getting into and just being involved with, because I think it really does take a lot of that pressure off of Oh my gosh, there's so much I have to know, and I don't even know where to get started. So, taking advantage of that mentorship through a veteran race team, as we call them, the Mama Birds, can really help you with that so that it can be the smoothest and the most fun process.
And you can find that on the website too, right? Through reaching out on their website.
Yes, you
Uh,
can. And then when you're registering, it's actually one of the little options. So, the registration process will identify you as a first time racer automatically because you've never registered before. And in the registration process, it'll say, hey, do you want to have a Mama Bird team? And you just check that box and you'll get assigned a Mama Bird team pretty much right away. So if you sign up January, that's the correct month, January 10th, for example, then you can have a Mama Bird team assigned to you January 11th, and they can help you through the rest of the entire process all the way to June. So you're never alone in this process because we need people to come back. We want people to come back, and we can't continue this race without, the mentorship part of this as well. So that's where the Mama Birds are so, so important.
That's really awesome. One of the things I love about the Air Race Classic is the fact that there's so many other people helping others. The other thing that I think is really cool is that you are an example for other women getting into aviation. And I think that's terrific. One of the best things that you can do in life is lead by example. And that's what you folks are doing at the Air Race Classic. But what would you tell somebody if they're a female out there and is interested in getting into aviation as a hobby? What advice would you give them?
One of our mission statements at the Air Race Classic is to encourage the next generation of women aviators. And so we take it very seriously in what we do, and we really strive with every direction we take it. Whether, I'm in education, so my division is always looking for ways to be able to encourage that next generation. The airplane division, everybody's so focused on it because we can't continue this without the next generation of women aviators. So, pieces of advice, or if you're one of those people that's still figuring out, is this for me, is aviation for me, and the answer is absolutely yes. Aviation is for everyone. It is an opportunity to feel freedom like you've never felt. It's an opportunity to see yourself do something that maybe you never thought you could do, or to do something that nobody around you has ever done before. It's a challenge of both physical, technical skill, but also brain, brain intelligence, brain use, the brain technicality behind it. And there aren't very many things in life that you get to do for fun where you really get to refine both of those. And not only that, but also to do it on such an international level, like flying in the Air Race Classic, and to interact with women of a similar, like-minded background or interest or passion. And that's just what makes it even more fun for me. So if you're thinking about it and you're just not sure, I'm sure there's a famous Amelia quote or Pancho Barnes quote about just go and do it. And I will reiterate that, and I'll push that out to everyone for the rest of my career is, even if you're just thinking about it, go do it, because you have no idea how far you can go.
Emmy, your passion for aviation and air racing just like shines through. And that's why I love following you on social media. And, I know we're friends on Facebook. It's the first time we've actually got to talk kind of in person. I know. I've been so excited. Well, I'm excited about following you. I follow a lot of my 99s friends who are air racers during the Air Race Classic. Like we mentioned earlier, following on the map, what I do, I kind of nerd out. I'll have the map pulled up on my computer screen, and you can also listen in at the different airports on liveatc.net. So to do both and is really, really exciting. So if you're not racing yourself and you, for whatever reason, you can't be there to help volunteer, that's the next best thing. And so that's what I found myself doing every summer. But yeah, you are such an inspiration for girls and for us women in aviation. What's next for you in your aviation career? What are your long-term goals?
That is such a interesting question in the sense that I think as I've gotten older, my idea of what I want to do in my career changes about like every 18 months. I find something new where I'm like, oh, that seems really cool. So for me, people think I'm crazy for it, but I've stopped caring. My dream goal that I'm kind of pushing myself to do is to become a NASA research pilot. So NASA has a whole fleet of airplanes that they use to do different types of research, whether it's atmospheric or flight control or aerodynamics or you name it, they're researching. And a lot of people are very familiar with the 7-4 Sophia that they retired last year, and the DC-8 they just retired literally this week. They flew it to Idaho. So I'm encouraged to be able to do that and even potentially become an astronaut. So flying a 777 now was a huge step for me. NASA has acquired a 777 in the last year. So I hope that maybe someday I'll be able to combine my passion for engineering and my passion for flying in doing some level capacity flying on that 777 for NASA.
That is amazing. I'm quite impressed. And no doubt you're going to reach that someday. And sometimes we can see rocket launches from our backyard way over here in Cape Coral, Florida, which is down in Southwest Florida. We just saw one a few nights ago. It was amazing. And so, maybe one day I'll get to see you blasting off from way over here. I will come watch you in person. So if someone wanted to follow you online, are you on social media where people can follow you and your aviation journey? And is the Air Race Classic on social media as well?
Yes to both. So to follow the Air Race Classic, you can follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. On Instagram, we're Air Race Classic Inc. So at Air Race Classic Inc. And our Facebook page is Air Race Classic Inc. as well. So you should be able to find both, find us on there on both sites. For me personally, you can find me on Instagram. It's Aviatrix Emmy. So I'll be posting regular updates, especially now that we're less than a month out, and all the behind the scenes, the preparation, and the final steps as we make our way to Carbondale, and then of course during the race itself. Might be a little bit sparse maybe during the race just because I have to be focused, but definitely will include all of the highlights. And like you said, Leslie, that live ATC link, oh my goodness, everyone should tune in July 18th at 8 a.m. local time there in Carbondale, because you will hear 49 race planes all filled with women pilots launch within 30 seconds of each other out of there. And it's one of the most exhilarating feelings. I get emotional every time because when you think about almost 100 years ago, there were 20 women doing that. Now we've got 49 teams. We've got over 100 women doing it now. And it just gives me chills of how cool this really is. So to be able to hear every classic racer launch, everybody should have the opportunity to do it. So I hope everyone tunes in.
Absolutely. And you can find all those links, by the way, at airraceclassic.org, and all Emmy's links right down here in the show notes at stuckmikeavcast.com. Emmy, this has been awesome. You really are an inspiration for everyone in aviation, especially with the women that are following you in the Air Race Classic, inspiring those to reach their goals and get out there and fly and do something that really pushes their limits. And thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate you being here, and can't wait to watch the race.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite. It's always fun for me to be able to talk about the Air Race and to just tell more people about it. It's one of those things that not many people know about, but once they do, they're fascinated by it. So thank you for letting me share about it. And I am so excited to race. It's just the coolest thing. So really looking forward to it myself.
Well, if you've been inspired by Emmy's story, I tell you, get out there and fly. Try it today. If you haven't been in an airplane, do it. If money's holding you back, we have a solution for that. We have that scholarships guide, and you can get one for free at stuckmikeavcast.com/free through our sponsors, and that's the folks over there at Stroomer Law. Use that coupon code Stroomer Law, and also many of the other people that pay it forward and help people move forward in their careers and also in their flying life, and get those ratings. Become a commercial pilot, or get your seaplane rating. We have them out there for you. Also, if you want to reach out and meet us at the upcoming air shows, we have one coming up in November at the Florida Air Show. We're also going to try as hard as we can to get to one of those spots on the Air Race Classic tour, either this year or next. I'm going to try to do it this year. We'll see. It's been a pretty busy couple of months here for us, but we will try to get out there. Otherwise, we definitely will have a link on our website as to how you can actually watch the Air Race Classic. But most most importantly, when you're done this show, no matter who you are and what your interest is in aviation, get out there and do something today to move forward in your aviation life. It's most important to do that. Just don't sit there and watch everybody else do it. I want you to get involved. It could be just getting out there on your simulator, watching a video, listen to a podcast. No matter what it is, get involved, just like Emmy has done. Just do something today to move forward in your life in aviation. We'll talk to you next episode. Safe flying out there.